The other programming and events here at Capital OTB, Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America. I am Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday morning. As usual on a Sunday morning, we'll recap some stakes action. There was plenty of it yesterday. Aqueduct with the Withers. Holy Bull down at Gulfstream, Southwest at Oaklawn, the Bob Lewis out in Southern California. On the 3-year-old side of things, those tracks also had some undercard stakes as well. There were a couple of stakes at Tampa. Going to take a look at that allowance event that we talked about yesterday on the undercard at Tampa as well, with a potential 3-year-old to watch, but we'll see how that turned out. And also there was a stake Friday at Oaklawn, the Bayacoa. So we'll take a look at that as well. So we have plenty of stakes action to recap this morning. Before we do that, I'm going to do another recap because when I stepped out last night, I said after I left the studio, I was going to head up. A week ago today, we talked to Brian Boyer from the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame. They had their countdown to the Triple Crown fundraiser last night, and I said I was heading out and heading up to the museum for the fundraiser. And I pulled up a little video, took my camera and shot a little video yesterday of the event. A lot of fun. And hats off to the museum. I was talking to Brian, and this is their second annual countdown to the Triple Crown. And he said they were just looking for something on the schedule, kind of in a lull. And talking to people last night, it seems like everybody was ready to get out early February, get out and have something to do. It was a really nice crowd, and there were silent auction items all around the museum. At the end of the night, when they listed the silent auction winners, there was a rush of folks coming up and enjoying winning a silent auction item. I think most everybody walked away happy with something. There was pictures, paintings, there were experiences and whatnot. Not only that, as you can see, you got to walk around the museum also and just enjoy looking at the exhibits in the museum. You can see there, really nice crowd. It was a fun night. And again, hats off to the museum. I have my brochure here from the museum. And, if you didn't make it last night, plan on next year. And there's some online items as well. You can check those out. Go to the museum website on the news side, pull up the Countdown to the Crown release, and there's a link. I think the online items are still live, and there's some great racetrack experiences, including Kentucky Derby. The silent auction items were all last night, and there was the 50-50 raffle. It was a lot of fun. And as I say, a very nice crowd. But if you didn't get there last night, again, maybe next year, plan for the February event. But there's a list of events in the brochure I picked up, and you have plenty of opportunities. They'll have a Kentucky Derby preview panel coming up. We talked about the book club with Brian Boyer. That sounds like a lot of fun as well. Annual Derby party will be Derby Day at the museum. There's going to be a Belmont Stakes Saturday morning social early in June with the Belmont coming to Saratoga. Another fun event that I know a lot of folks go to and enjoy, Tuesday, July 16th, horse racing trivia night. So you can go over and match wits with other horse racing trivia folks, and a great list. Off-site events, I'm interested. They have listed the Oaklawn Park Hall of Fame weekend. I think last year was the first year they did that. I remember seeing it when we were watching the simulcast schedule. A lot of Hall of Famers show up that day down at Oaklawn, autographs, and they're interviewed during the day between races and whatnot. But it looks like they're going to do it again Saturday, March 16th. Down at Oaklawn. Hall of Fame ceremony, of course, August 2nd. And the information came out asking for a call for nominees 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think we'll get the the actual nominees coming up shortly, and then the voting will take place, and we'll know who the finalists are. That's always a fun event too. The Hall of Fame ceremony. They had moved it over to the facing Tipton Sales Pavilion a few years ago, so a lot more room. Although it's usually standing room only when all is said and done. But not only do you get to see that year's inductees, a lot of the previous Hall of Fame members show up as well, so you get to see them and maybe get a picture taken. And then there's the autograph session at the racetrack later that day as well. So again, nice little fundraiser last night for the museum. One of the jewels of our area, I would say, that we have our own national sports museum right here in our backyard. If you've never been, it's right across the street from the racetrack, right across Union Avenue, and it's a lot of fun just to stop by. They have the movie there that they had it a few years ago. That's worth checking out as well. But it was a lot of fun last night, and saw a lot of friends and made new friends, and it was just walking around. It was fun to talk to people. I mean, obviously being on TV, people were recognizing me and commenting. A lot of folks say, you are on our TV all the time. I met Veronica and her husband, and she said exactly that. She said, you're on the TV all the time. And we appreciate that, certainly, that folks are watching OTB TV. But as I say, I made a lot of new friends last night also. And it was also, this was crazy. Immediately upon walking in, I heard this, but then I heard it 3 or 4 more times during the night. As we walked out yesterday, the last race at Aqueduct, I have the chart here. I said, I like the 11, Love Like Crazy, the Linda racehorse on top, and she went off at 6-5. And then I said underneath, I like Mama Bajiji, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it was a firster from by Bustin' Stones, went off at 20-1. And it wound up to be the Cold Exacta. And as I said, I had met at least 4 different people during the night who said, hey, I was watching, I had that Exacta in the last race. It was an $88 Exacta. And we love to hear that people, were watching and maybe benefited. A couple of people said, literally, hey, I heard you say it. And so I jumped in and played it. And a couple other people were like, I was looking at that, but when you said it, it just kind of validated things and jumped on. So to help the little handicapping and then allowed people to jump in, maybe you hadn't handicapped the race. And as I say, nice little $88 Cold Exacta as we wrapped things up at Aqueduct yesterday. And a handful of people at the museum benefited from it. Again, that was fun to hear. But again, fun night at the museum, and a great job there. Kate heading up the museum, and Brian was there and met some new folks that work at the museum. And, we always like to tout, as I say, that nice museum right in our own backyard for the racing and the Hall of Fame. Again, I should mention that as well. I said the museum's great. You go and the exhibits are all great. The movie's great. But the Hall of Fame, and we talked about it last week with Brian, the interactive screens now are great. You used to walk in and it was what you think of with the Hall of Fame, with the plaques, and that was great. But now you walk in and there are some interactive screens in the Hall of Fame room. And essentially you see a replica of what the plaques used to look like, but you can click on and really get much more information out. And as Brian said last week, as compared to how it was in the previous days where there was a printed plaque, that you couldn't really update what someone is, because a lot of these folks get in, they're still active, jockeys and trainers. But now with the interactive screens, it's completely up to date. And so the Hall of Fame is worth checking out as well. All right, let's jump in. As I said, we'll kick things off here and look at some of that 3-year-old action from yesterday. I will note, did we see Derby fever type horses were kind of going to jump on? Oaklawn may be interesting with the number that one fired. Certainly Nisos was a great performance, or a impressive performance. But it's a Bob Baffert runner. And if you aren't aware, the Baffert owners about a week ago all said, we're staying with Bob Baffert regardless of the situation with Churchill Downs. And Churchill Downs still has Baffert on a suspension, essentially, where he can't run at Churchill. And so his horse, and there was a deadline for horses to be transferred to somebody else to still be eligible for the Derby. That passed. And so the Baffert horses, Nisos, look good, but, given the situation, not a Derby horse. So again, I'm not sure we saw anyone that is getting the juices flowing, at least at this point, on the Derby side of things. We're going to start with the Withers. Lightline was the favorite. I wasn't totally convinced. I used number 1 Speed Runner, the Pletcher horse, so I thought might be a little bit interesting for Pletcher in a Derby prep race. Lightline, as I say, for Brad Cox was coming up off the most recent race at Oaklawn, but was coming up from Brad's winter base at Fairgrounds. And so on those factors, it's a Brad Cox runner. They elected to come up and try this. Lightline did go off just a little over even money as the favorite. He's going to wind up third. El Grande O for Linda Rice, the number 4 horse, makes a nice run to just miss for second, as the winner will be number 8, Uncle Heavy. And you can see Uncle Heavy coming. I said yesterday, there was no point where I thought Uncle Heavy was going to get there until about the last jump. It just looks like El Grande O had too much of a head start, but boom, right on the wire, a nose victory for Uncle Heavy. This is a Parks shipper for Butch Reed. And I've said now for a few weeks, it seems like this winter season in New York, these Parks shippers are worth looking at and competitive. And Butch Reed now is coming in at least a couple of stakes with these Park shippers. This is a Pennsylvania bred. He'd won a state bred stakes race in the prior start. In 3 starts, he had a couple of wins, the debut victory, then went in a little state bred stakes race, the Pennsylvania Nursery, and ran 5th. That didn't discourage him. They came back in another state bred stakes race and won. Notable there that it was a stretch out to 2 turns. So stretch to 2 turns, won that Pennsylvania bred stakes race at Parks. All 3 of the first races were at Parks. Comes to New York and gets it done, as you saw, on the wire by about that much. It's an 84 buyer. Butch Reed said after the race, I was pretty confident, and I wanted to take the shot because it looked like some of these others may be a little more sprint meant. He said the longer the better for my horse. And that was kind of proven when the horse stretched out last time and then again yesterday. Again, an 84 buyer, Uncle Heavy, impressive. Linda Rice said she was very pleased with hers, and she said, heartbreaking defeat. Uncle El Grande O, losing by a nose, was coming out of a second-place finish in the Jerome behind drumroll, please. Nice little New York bred, El Grande O. These are the kind you want because it's a New York bred that it can be very competitive in open company. So good little 3-year-old New York bred that they'll have fun with all year long because they can bounce in and out. If they want to try the open company, they can do that. They can pick those big stakes days in New York, the Albany and those kind of races for the 3-year-old New York breds and maybe win some money there. But it was a nice performance for El Grande O as well. So again, with the 84 buyer, it was a nice run. And Butch Reed said the longer, the better. Now, it was a money sealed track. I have to take that into account. But again, the 84 buyer, nice performance, but I don't know whether it's, as I say, the kind that gets your juices flowing of, oh, there's my Derby horse. But we'll see going forward because, again, there was nothing until that last jump where I thought he was going to win, and that is kind of impressive where they just won't give up. We were hoping the juices would get flowing down in Florida with the Holy Bull because it was the return of the 2-year-old champ Fierceness. Fierceness started the career with that impressive victory right up here in Saratoga towards the end of August. Then clunks in the Champagne and then comes back and validates the original win with a win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and becomes the 2-year-old champion. This was the 3-year-old debut for Fierceness. But boy, when he got to the stretch, this was not what you wanted to see from the 2-year-old champion. There he is in the Rapoli Silks. He's the number 7 horse. But you can see here, Hades, the 1, comes back, and Fierceness is beaten here, but not just beaten. He's going to wind up 3rd as number 6 Domestic Product for Chad Brown and Klarovich runs 2nd. But the winner, Hades, this was only the 3rd career start. Joe Orsino trainee was 2 for 2. Won the debut at 5.5. Won the first level allowance against state breds, going 7, and stretched to 1 mile and a 16th yesterday and got it done. Did it with an 85 buyer. Again, the number is not, it's not necessarily going to get your juices flowing. But it was only the 3rd career start, first time around 2 turns. They'll certainly go move on with some confidence, I think, this team, and as well they should. It was a nice win yesterday. And Joe Orsino had said during the week, we're aiming for this. We want this win. And they got it. Fierceness, on the other hand, this is one of the prep races on the Kentucky Derby Trail. So some folks maybe are just, let's get ourselves started and let's move on. All of that said, a 3rd place finish from Fierceness. And I said yesterday, talking to Jeremy Plonk, and he kind of agreed, it was going to be interesting to see the number coming out of this, the buyer number. And in that big debut up at Saratoga, Fierceness ran a 95. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he ran a 105. Now, you don't want to see regression, but, you're probably not going to come back with the 105 or better than the 105. And as Jeremy said, something maybe between that debut 95 and the 105 would be okay. The winner comes up with an 85, and Fierceness is almost 4 lengths back. I probably should have pulled up the start of the race, although it didn't jump out. It wasn't super obvious. But if you watch the race, and the follow-up article in the Racing Forum, I pulled up a quote from Mike Welch, and I think he summed it up nicely, and I think it's legit. Again, if you watch the race, you can see it, but it's not so egregious, but it's true. Just to quote the Mike Welch article, he mentions on Fierceness, he broke a bit flat-footed. He was put in tight and then was knocked around. And then kind of got rushed up and went, he was, quote again, hung wide into the first turn. And I think that's true. As he comes out of the gate, he does get squeezed a little bit. And then you can see the jock rushing and gets wide into the first turn. Todd Pletcher, after the race, kind of pointed to that start and said, it's had a bad start in the Champagne. And now, the other 2 races have been brilliant. But is this a horse that kind of needs things his own way to get brilliant? Because it's hard to get things your own way in a 20-horse field in the Kentucky Derby. But we'll see what, get word today how he came out and what might be next, and take another look at Fierceness. But boy, it was less than you would have hoped for, certainly. For the 2-year-old champion and the 3-year-old comeback. All right, over at Oaklawn, as I say, on the number, this one may be a winner. On the record coming in, I don't know whether we were super excited. Certainly the betting public let the winner of the Southwest down at Oaklawn get away at 11-1. But it's Ken McPeak. We had Ken on the show a few weeks ago. And Mystic Dan's going to be the winner here. Mystic Dan, good-looking debut, won in the 2nd start. Those were going short, stretched to 1 mile, ran 5th in the Southwest. And then yesterday, Mystic Dan under Brian Hernandez gets it done, as I say, at 11-1. Not just gets it done at by 8 lengths. And you see, pull up our number here. And as I said, on the number, this may be the one that's you could get some Kentucky Derby juices going, because it was a 101 buyer. So a solid number, a solid visual performance down there. Ken McPeak subsequently says possibly he'll skip the Rebel, which is next on the trail, and go into the March 30th Arkansas Derby off of this. But it is number 10, just Mystic Dan getting it done over number 11, Just Steel from Wayne Lucas. Liberal Arts at 9-2 runs third in here. I like Carbone, and Carbone went off as the 9-5 favorite. Steve Asmussen runner coming off of the 2-for-2 record and looked pretty good. Earlier in the day, Lightline had, not run particularly impressively up in New York. So maybe you got a barometer because Carbone had finished in front of Lightline last time. They were 1-2 in the race at Oaklawn. So maybe you could have gotten a little barometer there that, okay, let's see. I don't know if it was enough. It wouldn't have been enough to move me off of the horse. But all of that said, Carbone does disappoint a little bit. Third career start, but it was the stakes debut. So give him another look before I absolutely gave up. Yesterday, we also talked a little bit about Otto the Conqueror, who was coming out of the win in the Springboard Mile. Carbone ran 7th. Otto the Conqueror was just in front, running 6th. So neither of those super impressive at shorter prices. But Mystic Dan did look pretty good. Again, coming off of a couple of 5th place finishes. Ken McPeak just seemed to think, the horse kind of wasn't living up to the talent Ken McPeak thought. It was also notable because we talked about this yesterday with Jeremy Plonk. He said over the last week at Oaklawn, he's been looking at some horses who were coming in from other venues. Why? Because they had that weather cancellation weekend where it wasn't just canceling the racing, but the racetrack was undergoing, freezing and thawing. And so they weren't even training on the racetrack. And so he was looking for horses that were coming in from other venues that maybe had kept up with their training schedule. Well, that may be a notable thing that you might have been able to use on Mystic Dan, because Ken McPeak said he made the great move coming out of the Smarty Jones on the 1st of January and said, I'm getting out of Dodge. And he took Mystic Dan down to Fairgrounds, where he was able to keep training. And I would think it was beneficial as compared to some of the locally based horses who were on the sidelines for a week and a half and couldn't get out and train. So that it may be, again, that's not a factor that's going to last forever, because the horses are going to get back and get training and training fit. But, certainly this afternoon, maybe the beginning of next week, worth thinking about a little bit down at Oaklawn. The horses who come in from other places that have kept their training schedule intact. All right, and finally on the 3-year-old side of things yesterday, we'll take a look at, as I say, what might have been the most impressive. Mystic Dan was okay, but the record, a couple of 5th place finishes, you're left thinking, was that an aberration? And maybe the training schedule did affect some of the others. Nisos, on the other hand, has impressed in 2 starts coming into yesterday. Nisos won the career debut in October, then tried the Bob Hope at Del Mar. They were both big wins with solid numbers. So Nisos yesterday in the Bob Lewis at Santa Anita, 1-10 for Bob Baffert. And he's going to get it done pretty convincingly again. Nisos is the number 6 horse, Flavian Prat on board. And the chart margin here will be 7.5 lengths. So 3 for 3, all very impressive, all with solid numbers. And yesterday, another solid number. It was a 105. So he's now got a 96 on the buyer scale, a 96, a 97, and a 105. 105 in his first try around 2 turns. But again, Bob Baffert on the sidelines with the Churchill Downs situation. So there will be no Kentucky Derby for Nisos. This was the one that might have gotten your juices flowing. But not going to work out that way this year. But perhaps Preakness, perhaps Belmont. Maybe we see him up here at Saratoga in the Travers. Well, maybe we see him at Saratoga in the Belmont. But maybe we see him at Saratoga in the Travers. But Nisos so far, perfect with a 3 for 3 record. This was the 6th consecutive win in the Bob Lewis for Bob Baffert, the 12th win in the race overall. But as I say, Nisos 105 buyer, might have been the most impressive of the winners of the 4 3-year-old stakes yesterday, but not impressive enough to get the Kentucky Derby juices flowing, because regardless of how impressive, he's not going to be allowed, unfortunately. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, there was a lot of other stakes action yesterday as well. The 3-year-old races kind of highlighted things at the various venues, but as I say, other stakes action as well. So we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll jump into that. Stay tuned.
And they're off in the Pegasus World Cup. They're off in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And they're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. Forte wins. White Arboreal almost home.
And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby.
Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back. All right, let's jump into it. Besides the Withers, also on the card yesterday at Aqueduct was the Toboggan Grade 3 event, $175,000 up for grabs for the sprinters. This one was kind of fun. I put Kinetic Sky on top and went off as the favorite. Kinetic Sky, the 7, is going to wind up running third in here. A horse that typically is out and close to the lead just wasn't yesterday, so had too much to do. Maniwa, the 3, runs second, but the winner, Super Chow, horse I had right underneath. And I said yesterday, I've liked Super Chow throughout the career. And you can see drifts out here. Jockey said that was kind of normal. You just keep him running, and he keeps going. So chart margin there, 4 1/4 lengths for Super Chow. This is a horse that had started the career with a lot of promise. Chantel Sutherland was the regular rider down in Florida about this time last year, won the Hutchison, and had a really good record early in the career. As we got later in the season, wasn't kind of continuing that win streak or the number of wins, but was still running very well last year. At the end of the 3-year-old season. This was the 4-year-old debut, and it was also Plan C, as it were. This horse had been scratched from a Gulfstream allowance, a couple of weeks ago or whatever, in favor of going to Laurel and trying a stakes race. Well, as we all know, various venues from around the country have been a little weather snake bitten, and Laurel felt that a couple of weeks ago, and the stake that Super Chow was aimed for was canceled. So again, this was kind of Plan C, but it was fun. It was fun for a couple of reasons. Again, it was Plan C. It got the horse a win for the 4-year-old debut, but it was also the first career stakes win for the apprentice Maddie Alver. And if you've been watching New York racing, she's doing okay. Now, in a stakes race, you don't get the apprentice allowance, and the trainer, Delgado, was quoted as saying, yeah, I left her on. She's riding the horse pretty well. He said, she hasn't necessarily been getting the wins, but the horse is running very well with her, and she knows the horse. And again, she said in the stretch, that's just what he does, but you don't want to take hold of him too much. Just let him keep running. He'll keep going fast, but he drifts out a little bit. So she is familiar with the horse. Trainer keeps her on despite not getting the weight allowance for the apprentice, and she gets her first career stakes victory. So again, it was kind of fun to see that as well. And not just a stakes victory, it gets a graded stakes victory as it was a grade 3, but it was a nice performance from Super Chow with a 95 buyer, solid buyer. And just how does that fit on his scale? Pretty close to his career best. He has a 96 as well on the resume, but that was pretty much a career best or very close to it performance yesterday for Super Chow. Again, Plan C works out. All right, at Gulfstream, there was a nice card of undercard stakes races. We'll kick it off taking a look at the Swedish Chant, the 3-year-old fillies on the grass. I like Life's an Audible at 9-5 for Todd Pletcher and Mike Rapoli. And again, Pletcher, as we'll see with the allowance race a little bit later on with Fierceness, it was a rough day for some of the Pletcher runners. And with Fierceness, the Mike Rapoli side of things as well. I'm sure they were expecting to be in the winner's circle a little later in the day also, but there was a ton of people in the winner's circle after Life's an Audible, but had to work for it. Life's an Audible is the number 1 horse. Style points, Christophe Clement, 3rd-time starter coming out of the maiden breaker. Very tough in here. Dynamic pricing for Chad and Klarovich also ran very well, but it will be number 1, Life's an Audible, who gets up in the shadow of the wire. The chart margin's a neck. It's a neck to 3rd. So again, it's Life's an Audible over style points, over dynamic pricing. But Life's an Audible, Pletcher and Rapoli, nice little 3-year-old filly on the turf now. Second in the Ginger Brew in the previous start. Had tried the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf, had run 8th in there, and the Dirt debut. So the 8th in the Breeders' Cup and the Dirt debut, and off the turf are running 4th up at Saratoga. You kind of draw a line through those, and the other turf races are all very good, either firsts or seconds, and now gets the win yesterday. And you like to see that under Irod Ortiz. Just keeps going until gets the victory at the end, just in the shadow of the wire. And Life's an Audible winds up with an 85 buyer. And you see how that matches up on her resume. That's a lifetime best buyer number. So nice performance for her. And as I say, the team now has a nice little 3-year-old filly on the turf to play with as the year goes along. All right, the Holy Bull was the 3-year-olds at 2 turns. The Swale, the 3-year-olds at 1 turn, going 7 furlongs. Boy, I like Legalize in here. The Cherie DeVoe runner coming off a nice win in a stakes event down at Fairgrounds. But Legalize, at 4-5. Betting public like that one too, from a 3-1 morning line. Legalize is the number 7 horse and is just going to back up here in the stretch. Going to wind up last in the field of 7. Frankie's Empire, the number 9, gets it done. And gets it done at 14-1 is the rank outsider. Second longest price on the board. Ladam Bro runs 2nd and Grand Mo runs 3rd. But I tell you what, it's the longest price on the board. Made it look pretty easy. $30 even, wins by over 3 lengths. And Frankie's Empire gets an 81 buyer, and that's a lifetime best for him. Again, I like Legalized. That one didn't show up. I thought Risk It could be a little bit interesting. Risk It, who had a really good-looking debut at Saratoga, just has not lived up to that. The follow-up was an okay second in the Iroquois down at Churchill, but 2 subsequent starts to that before yesterday were not impressive. And then Risk It runs 5th yesterday. So after the really good-looking debut, the son of Gun Runner for Steve Asmussen and Winchell, Risk It, again, not quite validating what we saw in that debut up at Saratoga, and that trend kind of continued. I wonder if this may be the spot where all right, let's get back to the more proper non-winners and see if we can find a race carded and get a little confidence builder into Risk It. But Frankie's Empire, nice win there. in the swale, and we will see. As I say, these were 3-year-olds sprinting, and those have become clearly a couple of separate divisions. It used to be some of these races would be preps for going longer, but it seems now folks are deciding not. And at this point of the year, nobody maybe has it set in stone, but there are 3-year-old sprinters and 3-year-olds who are going to try the more classic distances. And if these are in that 3-year-old sprint category, I don't know if anybody comes out of that where you're really thinking, okay, this is one that we will be watching on the Woody Stevens and whatnot on the 3-year-old sprint side of things going forward. I don't know if it was that impressive of a race. All right, the forward gal yesterday. Flip side, it's the 3-year-old fillies sprinting 7 furlongs. Another one where the horse I liked just did not show up. I like Whitwater's Rand. The number 7 horse winds up last in the field of 6 at 3-1. Our Harper Rose, betting public was on it and I wasn't. At 2-1, the second choice. Our Harper Rose is going to be the number 4 horse. Safi Joseph, Rich Averill Racing and Company. Cutting back to a sprint off a second place finish going 2 turns last time. This is a horse that had shown plenty of ability. The 2 turns race had run second, but had 3 wins right before that. And as I say, I probably made a mistake not putting that one in my mix. There were others that I thought were a little more intriguing, but our Harper Rose was certainly off of, again, the 3-for-4 record with the second place finish, now 4-for-5. And so as opposed to the male side, I think our Harper Rose is probably one to watch on the 3, test maybe. We'll see if Rich Averill wants to do that. It was an 84. It wasn't, didn't jump off the page number-wise, but it was a lifetime best buyer, so moving in the right direction early in the 3-year-old season. And, okay number to kind of build on and move forward from. And as I say, I would think as compared to the 3-year-old sprinting boys, the 3-year-old sprinting females yesterday, or at least our Harper Rose, may have a little future in that subdivision. Kitten's Joy, it's the subdivision I like quite a bit. I talk about it all the time. 3-year-olds on the turf. And the horse I liked in here, Agate Road, scratched. I had Deadpan, the number 5, as a move up. That one runs last. So I had a theme here with my top picks for a while. But I did have First World War, the number 6 horse, in the second slot afterwards. Had run second to Otello and the Mucho Macho Man in the previous start. That was on the dirt, but I had a couple of turf starts early in the career that were okay. Brendan Walsh gets back to the turf yesterday with First World War. Tyler Gaffleone on board. Nice performance. 84 buyer. That was, again, a lifetime best buyer number on returning to the turf. Has now, turf-wise, a couple of wins in 3 starts on the turf. The only off-the-board finish of those 3 turf starts, a close-up 4th in the Bourbon. So I would think in this subdivision of the 3-year-olds on the turf, First World War may be worth watching going forward for Brendan Walsh and company. Hammerstein finished second, and Takayo runs third. That one, Takayo had won the Dania Beach, but had done it at 13-1, and I didn't have him in my mix yesterday, despite having won that early season 3-year-old turf race down there. I wasn't totally convinced, and as I say, he won at a little bit of a price. So coming out of this race, again, the one that kind of I'll be watching going forward on that 3-year-old turf scene is the winner, First World War. All right, we'll take another break. When we come back, we will take a look at some of the undercard action at Oaklawn and more when we continue on the Sunday edition of Racing Across America. Seth Merrow in the studio. As always, thanks for joining us. Back in a couple. Stay tuned. Haven't signed up for a Capital OTB account yet? Now's the time to take advantage of the sign-up bonus. Open up a new account with $200 or more, bet $400 by the end of the month, and receive a bonus $200 into your account. Plus, you can take advantage of everything an OTB account has to offer: wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, past performances, online promotions, and more. Sign up today and take advantage of the new account bonus. Details at capitalotb.com.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now. Welcome back to Racing Across America. Let's shift now down to Arkansas and some of the undercards of that Southwest that was towards the end of the day yesterday, but earlier on the King Cotton. These are sprinters. I had it 3 and 8. I used Tejano Twist over Skelly, but the betting public's smarter than me, and understandably, Skelly was coming in with a 6-race win streak for Steve Asmussen. Had in that win streak 3 triple-digit buyers, had a 99 buyer in a win at Oaklawn prior. Skelly's the number 8 horse. And again, Tejano Twist is number 3 horse. You can just see Tejano Twist makes a great late run, and that's his style. It's just Skelly, the talented Skelly, had just, gotten the jump. And so you knew at the top of the stretch, Tejano Twist had too much to do. So again, the betting public got that right at 4 to 5, $3.60. Tejano Twist runs second as the second choice at 2 to 1. So no surprise there. But with the 2 logicals, you got just a little under $9 on your exacta. So again, there was a lot of value there. But it's one of those that if you weren't betting, if you looked up and you saw the 4 to 5 and you liked Skelly and you weren't playing, maybe you used him in one of the horizontals. But it was one that's just fun to watch, to see a horse like this, not just win number 7 in the streak. It was win number 8 overall in the career of 12 starts. So 12 starts, 8 wins, and 3 seconds for Skelly. Steve Asmussen, 5-year-old now. And we'll see, Asmussen certainly has horses up here at Saratoga. We'll see if we can see Skelly, because again, this is just one of those horses with the triple-digit buyers on the resume. It's a horse that you can always appreciate, always giving a good try, and 8 out of 12 times giving the best try possible, winning, and wound up yesterday with a 105 buyer. Again, puts in another triple digit. So again, just fun to, even if you aren't thrilled about a short price, it's one of those that, all right, sit back and watch and just enjoy a nice performance. And that's what we saw yesterday. In the Martha Washington, the 3-year-old fillies, the co-feature as compared to the Southwest for the boys. This was the 3-year-old girls who may be on their way to the Kentucky Oaks. Before that, there's a couple more steps right here at Oaklawn as well. So we'll see what happens as far as that. I like Denim and Pearls, the number 8 horse. The betting public did as well at even money. Denim and Pearls for Brad Cox, coming out of a second place finish in a stake here, close up second in a stake here on New Year's Eve. The 8 horse is Denim and Pearls, and you can see right there has the lead. But you can see the one coming up, the one Tappet, Janelli, I'm guessing is how you pronounce that, kind of makes a run, and you thought that horse or the 4-horse might do it. And then on the outside, it was Band of Gold. Band of Gold is notable as well because Ken McPeak upsets the Southwest with Brian Hernandez on board, and they upset the Philly version as well, the Martha Washington. And again, Denim and Pearls, you thought was going to get passed by the 1 or the 4. They were fighting, but Denim and Pearls proved classy enough to get the second place finish. Naomi Beach, the 4, runs third, and that one Tappet, as I say, Janali winds up fading a little bit. Nice little run from that one. Being lightly raced, Tappet Janali is probably worth looking at going forward. They're all 4 of them, really. Naomi Beach, also relatively lightly raced. Denim and Pearls, this was only the 4th career start. And as I say, she got in a little scrum there and got the best of those other 2 to get second. All of that said, Band of Gold looked really good. This was only the 3rd career start. And Band of Gold winds up with a buyer of 86. Not, a spectacular jumping off the page buyer, but a 3-year-old filly this time of year, much less as compared to her prior 2 buyers. Band of Gold started the career with a gutsy nose win at Churchill in an off-the-turfer last November, a 59 buyer. Then tried the Untappable, the stake down at Fairgrounds late in December, ran 5th in there with a 63 buyer. And yesterday, bang, the 86 buyer and the big win. Now, we also have to take into account it was a sloppy sealed track. We'll see if, some horses just tend to like those off tracks and freak on them a little bit. We'll see if that's the case with Band of Gold as we move down the road. But she is certainly worth paying a little bit of attention to going forward, as is Denim and Pearls. As I say, I thought that was a gutsy performance. Was about 3 lengths back in second, but that she, took the challenge from the other 2 and came. And she's still lightly raced, so Denim and Pearls probably worth watching a little bit as well. Also on the card yesterday at Oaklawn, it was the American Beauty. These are fillies and mares going 6 for $150,000. Not much to say here. I liked Alva Star going in, last seen running a close-up second to Vava, the nice West Point runner. Close-up second in the Raven Run last October at Keeneland. Had won the Prioress at Saratoga last year as a 3-year-old sprinting filly. This was her 4-year-old debut. She was even money on the morning line. She went off at 30 cents to the dollar, and the number 4, Alva Star, gets it done. As I say, not a whole lot to say there. She was supposed to win. She did win. She winds up doing it with an 88 buyer. Just looking, that was kind of a regression for her because, again, that second in the Raven Run was 100. The win in the Prioress, buyer-wise, was a 98. So, again, it was a little bit of regression. But, again, it was a sloppy sealed track. She hadn't been seen since October. It was the 4-year-old debut. So I would think we can perhaps give her a little bit of a pass there on the number going backwards. Certainly we'll see, get to see what she does next time and then make maybe more of a firm decision on how she has transitioned to the new season. But she didn't have to go any faster than she went. She was an easy victor. So it was a perfectly good, I think, seasonal debut. All right, couple stakes races down at Tampa. The Endeavor, it is going to be number 4, Walkathon, getting it done, and kind of lived up to the name as Walkathon. Took them all the way around under Antonio Gallardo. 24 and change, 49, 112, 135, and then just holds them off by a length and a half. Be My Sunshine second, and Sparkle Blue third. The favorite was Consumer Spending, as the name would indicate. That was a Chad Klarovich runner. So you knew that one was going to take some action. The favorite, Consumer Spending, disappoints, running 5th in there. But again, on the early fraction, you're sitting there with Walkathon at 9-1 and looking at those fractions. You had to feel pretty good. You walked away with $20 and change coming out of the Endeavor down there yesterday with a horse that Walkathon did on the front end and got it done all the way. Also on the card yesterday at Tampa was the Tampa Bay Stakes. This one was a little bit interesting because the winner was Never Explained for Shug. And this was a horse, I want to say, yeah, it was a Preakness weekend last year down at Pimlico. I was out doing a bankroll out in the front half of the race book and had used this horse in one of the plays and got it done at 15-1. So dear to my heart, I guess, is Never Explained. And Never Explained hadn't been seen since September at Kentucky Downs, but Shug had this one ready at a nice 4-1. Gets it done, as you saw there, half a length. There was a jam up there in the first few spots. Running B runs second by a nose, and Siege of Boston runs third, but at $10.80. Never Explained. Again, nice little seasonal debut for the 6-year-old. Been training over at Payson Park, the base over on the East Coast, for some of Shug's horses. He also has some horses down at Gulfstream itself. But as I say, this horse paid off for us last year at one point at a nice price, and kind of sets himself up for a decent little 6-year-old season as well. 20 starts in the career, 6 wins. That has to put the horse with yesterday. Yeah, it puts the horse over $400,000 in earnings. And let me see here. It got a 90 buyer, or a 96 buyer for Never Explained, which is pretty close to a lifetime best. Lifetime best buyer was a 97. So that was a nice, off a September layoff, that was a pretty good looking 6-year-old debut for Never Explained. And also wanted to show another stake from Oaklawn, and this is going back to Friday. It was the Bayakoa Grade 3 event for the older fillies and mares, going a mile and 16th for $250,000. The winner here is going to be number 6, Comparative, and this one's kind of notable. It's a Brad Cox runner, and maybe it's notable because it's a Brad Cox runner that paid $14. But it's also notable, Manny Franco on board. Manny Franco, I think he had a couple of mounts on Friday. And Comparative's number 6 horse, you can see they're going to gut it out on the rail and win by a head over Ice Orchid. Misty Vale. Misty Vale got away at 20-1. Misty Vale's a horse I have liked for a while now. And at 20-1, she's right there in the mix. Winds up third, and is a length some back in third. But at 20, boy, the betting public let Misty Vale get away at a price. And again, third, but if you tossed it in at $20 to complete your try, you wound up with a nice price. The betting public went with Hot and Sultry as the favorite for Norm Cassie at 4-5. That one had some trouble, stumbled at the break, and so was just way back early. So if you were a Hot and Sultry fan coming out of a win in November in the Chaluki at Churchill, I think Hot and Sultry probably had the excuse. But Comparative, getting it done for Brad Cox off a couple of, and as I say, for Brad Cox, you got $14 and change with a horse that was coming in off a couple of wins, both up at Aqueduct, one in an optional claimer, non-winners of 2 at Aqueduct in November, and then went in the ladies, the stakes race early in January and won. Both of those, she was ridden by Manny Franco. So I'm sure that was the thinking. Manny's made a nice little connection here with the horse. Come on down and take your shot, Manny, for the better part of $250,000 purse, and he gets it done. He was back in New York yesterday. And I said yesterday, I never did read, but I'm guessing this is probably it. Manny was replaced on his mount in the first race at Aqueduct yesterday. I'm thinking probably there was a delay. That seems to be the case a lot of times with these out-of-town riders, and then the next day they missed the first mount or a couple of mounts or whatever, and there's just a situation getting in from the airport and whatnot because Minnie was riding later in the day. But worth missing the first mount on a Saturday at Aqueduct if you can pull down $250,000 purse down at Oaklawn on Friday afternoon. So again, Brad Cox, Manny Franco, Comparative getting it done, and an 88 buyer for Comparative. Again, pretty close to the lifetime best. That was an 89 in that win in the ladies early in January at Aqueduct. So kind of puts a couple of decent performances together in the most recent starts. And again, it looks like Brad Cox with a nice player on the Philly and Mayor scene this year with the 4-year-old comparative. And finally, I wanted to look at, because we talked about it yesterday, and it was a quirky. Now I'm intrigued to see what this horse does next time. Quirky performance. We talked about the undercard at Gulfstream with the optional claimer allowance, non-winners of one other than in the 6th with Born Noble. And I said a lot of people are going to be intrigued to see, because this is one of those that might get your juices flowing as a potential Derby horse. And certainly a win yesterday would have moved Born Noble onto the trail, I would think, and stakes company. Born Noble, St. Elias, West Point Thoroughbreds, Todd Pletcher, Irod Ortiz was on board December 30th for the debut victory, which was an easy victory, daylight and a 93 buyer. And so you're now, okay, let's see what Born Noble can do here in this non-winners of one. Again, perhaps on the way onto the Derby trail. Well, Born Noble is going to be the number 5 horse here. Merritt, who I thought was interesting for Safi Joseph. You can see Merritt sitting right off, and Merritt really took it to Born Noble. Born Noble now pops away at top of the stretch, and you can see the fractions there. The opening fraction, very reasonable for Born Noble, 24 and change. But then a 46 and a 110 as Merritt really pushed Born Noble, and it just took the starch out of that one to the point where in the shadow of the wire, it's the number 3, Real Macho, getting it done. Rohan Crichton and Tyler Gaffleone. They win by a neck at 26-1. Born Noble goes down at 2-5. I didn't see a number. I didn't see a buyer. I'm going to be very intrigued, again, off the 93 in the debut for Born Noble. But, and you know, Edgar Zayas was on Merritt, and I kind of get it when you have, you know, that super talented or seemingly super talented horse. I guess you kind of go on the suicide mission, and maybe it works out for us, maybe it doesn't. So I kind of get it. But with those fractions, again, off the 24 opening quarter, you thought, this is going to be a cakewalk for Born Noble. But then they hit 46 and 110. And Born Noble disposed of Merritt. But it just, and it looked like, it's going to be and that was going to be impressive, classy enough to put up with that early fight and still kind of pull away. But it turned out not to be the case. About the last 16th of the mile, you could see it getting to him. But again, this is one of those where, given that pace scenario, which was quirky, as they say, it was almost a suicide mission from the other horse, thinking that's maybe my only option, my only chance to kind of upset this horse. With that scenario, I want to see another one from Born Noble before I would decide on that one. I think the first start probably is the talent we can look at from this one, because it was kind of a quirky and again, with the quirky pace situation, it lost by a neck. He was still right there until the final couple of strides. But I did want to show that again, because we had talked about it yesterday, and there was some buzz about it. At the museum last night, a couple of people I talked to were talking about that race as well. All right. Again, there was a lot of action yesterday. So hopefully you scored. Again, it was fun to talk to the people up at the museum who had that nice little exacta to wind up the day yesterday at Aqueduct. We'll see if we can toss out a few more of those today. I don't know how that'll work, but we'll certainly try. In about an hour or so, we'll come back for OTB Live on a Sunday afternoon. I'm going to take a look at some Aqueduct, some Gulfstream, some I will have to figure my third track. And I will also note that Saratoga Harness is back in action. I think last night was their opening night. So Saratoga Harness is back in action as well for those fans of the sulky side, which includes me. But we will, as I say, be back in action here for OTB Live on a Sunday afternoon in about an hour. Before I wrap up, let me give you a little preview of what's coming up over the next week here at Capital OTB. Don't forget, on Wednesdays throughout the month, you get a 1% Florida bonus if you meet the thresholds playing either or both Tampa and Gulfstream Park. On Wednesdays, you get the 1% Florida track bonus. So keep that in mind. Wednesdays throughout February. Coming up on Friday, the Bounty Bet returns. It'll be the late pick 5 at Aqueduct. Again, you got $975 up for grabs. And all you have to do to take your shot on Friday, play the late pick 5 at Aqueduct and play with your Capital OTB bet account. That's it. And then you're in for a shot at the Bounty. If you're the only person to hit the late pick 5 amongst only people playing via Capital OTB bet, but if you're the only person to hit it, you also get, in addition to your pick 5 payoff, you get the $975. If a number of people hit it, they will split the consolation. But again, that's Friday. Bounty bet, late pick 5 at Aqueduct. On Saturday, here at the Clubhouse Racebook, $100 win-a-bet contest, so you can have a little extra fun here on Saturday at the Clubhouse. And Sunday at the Clubhouse, I've been saying it for the last couple of days. I know it's a giveaway a lot of people look forward to. We just got in our supply of 2024 NYRA calendars, and the first 75 folks to come through the door a week from today, next Sunday, NYRA calendar giveaway day here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, thanks for the hospitality last night at the museum. It was fun to see the old friends, and it was fun. Really appreciated everybody out there. If you're watching, all the new friends we made last night as well. It was a fun evening. As I say, I think everybody was kind of ready. Here we are, middle of winter, to kind of get out and have a little fun on a Saturday night. So again, appreciate the hospitality up there at the museum, and mark it on your calendar for next year, certainly if you didn't get a chance to go. All right, wrapping things up for a Sunday morning on Racing Across America. Seth Merrow in the studio. We'll be back in about an hour or so for OTB Live on a Sunday afternoon. Some great racing action ahead. We'll see you then. We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.